I'm phonetically like so P
Pelayo?
like lie
Pelayo.
L-I-E.
Yeah,
and
that's
you.
great, Jerrell. Yeah.
Okay. Because I don't want to mess up nobody's name.
So, and
No,
mine
we've
is
done that before. So.
mine is Melissa.
Okay,
I like that we're all coordinated as well. Like we're all red, have some
That's
red.
true.
Mine's
We got a little red in it.
Center
That is
for
true.
me.
But you've got also some white, so I love
Exactly.
juices. At least I fit in
But
a
I
little
but I
bit.
cuss a little.
Cuss a little, yeah.
Hey, aunties.
This is Melissa
And Pelayo.
and we are the hosts of the Forbidden Apple podcast.
What's brewing today?
Introducing AunTeas AF and Malka.
Ask your aunties, intrigued or attracted?
And they outing everyone out here. So get your cups ready for Minoritea Report.
Well, hello. Good evening, everyone.
Hey, how's
community.
it going?
Man, I was saying before we hopped on, I'm out of sorts. Like I was about to start the episode, not recording. Like my webcam wasn't working for a minute there, but other than that, I'm doing all right. How about you guys?
My life is slowly coming back. I have a screwdriver. No, is it a screwdriver? Screwdriver is vodka and orange juice, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm drinking a tequila and orange juice. Like that's what
is
she's
that?
having right now.
What's that called?
I don't know. That's what I just asked. I almost said a screwdriver. But the tequila is bringing me back to life right now. Yeah. I just got off work 30 minutes ago, so I'm
Okay,
I'm
well,
drained.
Since you brought up tequila, can I ask you a question?
now I'm gonna
Question?
answer
Tell me how you feel about this.
Right.
No, just play it.
Are you wearing pants?
I am wearing pants
Yes! Clink, clink. And I don't have a shot glass by me, but I have the whole bottle. I'll do one with you. Clink, clink, clink.
So sometimes, to our guests, sometimes, well, most of the time I don't wear pants. I'm very just zoom from the waist up. And so I guess the game today was take a shot if Jerrell didn't have pants on, or if I had pants on.
Exactly.
So
it's turned into like a kind of, Dawon's kind of the spearheaded behind it. He always kind of like secretly texts one of us to see like some random question. And it's usually is Kerel going to talk about either being a pastor kid or some producing music stuff. So this week it was, actually I think we did this one before, if Jerrell's wearing pants or not. And that's 2 for 2 of wearing pants when we do this to you.
Well, it's December.
Which is interesting because so this is just a little game that I guess I started like a while ago, just to like mix something up and like, listen, it doesn't hurt to have a shot before you're getting ready to talk for a good hour. So
That is true. That is true.
So we just started doing this randomly, and I just thought it'd be a little bit something fun if the other podcast member didn't know what it was, and it was a little thing between us. So
I know we got to get Dawon back. We haven't done Dawon yet.
Yeah.
We're going to have to find a way to do that. But anyway, community, we have 2 amazing people on this episode with us.
yes,
We have Melissa and Pelayo from the Forbidden Apple podcast. And we're happy to be here. And they've been in our DMs trying to link up with us forever. And it's been us that we're like, okay, we got one of these days, we'll get back to you. And today is finally the day. Before we get into knowing you more, what do you have auntie names at all? Like, it's your favorite beverage, usually adult, but if you just like Kool-Aid, it could be auntie Kool-Aid if you want.
So I'm gonna let
we actually had 2, right? We selected, but we didn't associate it with drinks. We just said like,
okay.
oh, whatever.
But what was the original ones then?
Mine was Auntie AF, just because it's my surnames and I like how it sounds in English.
There we go.
Yeah,
I love it.
And mine was my Hebrew name is Malka, which means queen. So mine was either Queen or Malka, which is basically
Malka.
Okay.
How do you spell that? Malka?
Yeah.
Okay, Melka.
Auntie Malka. Oh, okay, I like that. That's a good one.
Okay, yeah.
Yes.
And you know what, Jerrell? I have the name of your drink then. Melka AF. There we go.
There we
Okay.
go.
Into a drink.
Yeah. Boom.
Pull together.
Boom.
Extra shot.
Queen as fuck.
Yeah.
Oh, man. So the Forbidden Apple podcast, before you even started the podcast, how did you two link up? Like, how did you guys become friends?
We met on Grindr.
Yes.
Lies and deceit.
You be careful.
I mean, I don't want to
Find a lot on
misgender
Grindr.
anybody.
Right.
But
No. Actually, we have a story, Melissa and I. We met in an all-Russian, all-straight party. Every time we tell this story, it's a little bit
well,
more
it
interesting.
couldn't have been all straight.
Yeah.
But so the two of us were the only like queer and English, not English, but like non-Russian speaking
Yes.
people in
Yeah.
the room.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
Wh-
Yeah.
Like, where do they, where?
Okay. So
Let's
House
get into
way.
details.
yeah. So our friend Zhenya is this beautiful, fabulous Russian woman, right? And she throws these like extravagant parties. So we were in this. Where was the first time that we met? Was it on the rooftop?
Times
or was it-
Square. Like,
she-
it was in the rooftop, like a very fancy, like Times Square rooftop that she has.
And it's entertainment. It's this really big party. And for her birthday, she celebrates really. And Pelayo and I were the only ones, and if you drink and there's less English spoken in any language, I think everyone falls back to so everyone's speaking Russian, and Pelayo and I are the only ones that are like, we don't know what's happening. And we were both like kind of newly out or openly, I guess,
Right.
dating.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Other people. So we were bonding over that. And
Love
we
it.
met the next year in the same kind of party again. And then we became roommates at some point.
What? That's awesome.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Love
Yeah.
that story. So all within New York, though.
Yes.
All
Those are
within
those
New York,
connections.
All within
I
New
went
York.
to Spain for a whole year within that break, so I didn't see her for a whole year. And then the next birthday party, I met her there a year
That's
after that.
Funny.
That's
Love
amazing.
that. Love that.
Life
Yes.
like that.
Yes, and I helped Pelayo get organized, and he helped me get like organized in my brain. Like it was like I was like being like, clean up. This is how you do it. And now he's like way better than I am, and he
No.
how to like organize. Then he teaches me how to organize my life. I feel like we helped each other out a lot.
He's like Iyanla. Pelayo, fix my life.
Yeah.
She was like Marie Kondo, and I was like her. I don't know who
True.
fixes lives out there.
Love it. Love
Yeah.
it. Love it. So then how did the podcast come about? Did you just one day like, you know what? I feel like doing a podcast about spirituality and faith and things like that. And you're like, you know what? Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was almost like that. I remember like we were like having like a sushi dinner, and the two of us that we always like doing while speaking about like something very dense and that cannot be like defined in like black and white. It's always like gray areas with us. So we're always like kind of like playing like devil's advocate with everything and kind of like seeing the other person's perspective and stuff. And we wanted to have like a space where we wouldn't be broke and create art at the same time. So we knew about podcasts, and we thought that having a space where we could kind of like reclaim our spirituality and coming from very religious environments, this is like a difficult process. So we wanted to have a space, bring people on and learn more about what having meaning and being balanced in life and being grounded means to the LGBT community.
That's great.
Love that.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah. I've said on the podcast before, like I felt that struggle, like being, I know Kerel, you've mentioned too, like being a PK, like being queer, then also having like faith, spirituality at the same time. You're like, oh, I sometimes feel torn because I know within the spiritual faith community, there are those who still backwards and, hate on us and don't and don't care for the queer community. But then on the same time, in the queer community, there are those who be like, what, you like Jesus? Oh my God, what's wrong with you? Like, I can't stand you. And I'm like, damn, like, why are you hating on me too? Like, you know, so often I felt myself in between. So I love that you guys created this space with your podcast.
Yeah, especially like in like the Black community, the Black church is like, they hate on the queer community, yet then it's the same one that's the choir director and the one jamming on the tambourine and then the choir and all that on Sunday.
Okay.
And doing the hair and doing the choreography and,
you know,
and doing the finances of the books.
So it's just so weird how backwards that is.
Okay, I just want to, can I just, so PK is just a cool way of saying pastor's kid? Is that the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, pastor's kid, cool. Preacher's kid.
But
it's pretty cool.
Thank you, Melissa.
Like it just sounds like it's something really like relaxed. Like as PK.
Yeah.
And it might be like within, it might be a cultural thing because I'm not sure. I'm not sure outside of like almost like Black church.
Okay, it's not.
If that's utilized at all. That's actually.
I thought you were from like Poughkeepsie or something. I thought it was an area. In
like. I think when someone says they're a pastor's kid, it sounds like it goes down. The energy, it's like I'm a pastor's kid. You know, it's serious. When you say PK. It's like it
hypes it up a little bit.
Yes.
Puts a little swag on it. Put a little aura on it.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so this is way off topic. Not way off topic, but I didn't know what a PK was until Kerel started saying PK.
Really?
My ass thought PK meant like it was short for Pikachu. So at first, when you first said it, bitch, I kid you not, I put that on everything. Because I love anime. So like in my mind, that's where it went. And now I'm like, that's the only
So you thought every
thing.
time I said I'm a PK, I was talking about I'm a Pikachu?
Well, no, just the first time. The first time I thought that.
A day in your life.
That is funny.
Never heard it a day in my life. But when you said
Really?
the first time, I was literally sitting there. I was like,
What the hell's a PK?
and I was like, well, maybe she yelling all the time because that's what Pikachu would do. I don't know, girl. I was just, and then you broke it down. I was like, that makes sense. But
that is so. At this Russian party, did you guys talk about? Was that like a conversation that came up?
I think every time Pelayo and I have a conversation, it always went deep, right? It's always about like thought work and our personal shit, just like a lot of deep things. Like, how do we make peace with that? And I think both of us have this idea of I try not to be angry at the other person. I tend to try to understand their point of view. So like if my family's having a hard time and I'm having a hard time, I like to believe that they love me, but also that it's hard. And so Pelayo and I would process a lot of this stuff together. Trying to like, how do we process it without like vilifying somebody else? Like, how do we be like, this is how I'm feeling. That's probably how they're feeling. How do we go about it? So all our conversations would be that kind of like intense
empathy.
work.
Yeah. I think the word is empathy, and also not only like with family, but like through breakups, for example, and that's also spirituality for us, you know. And we really wanted to like enlarge that word. And not come to somebody and say, "Oh, we have a podcast about spirituality," and they're like, "Oh, like Jerrell was saying that like people don't. Some queer people have been so hurt by it that they don't really want to associate themselves, or and it has happened to us that it's like, no, we don't wanna do anything to do with you because we don't like religion and we don't want to promote it. You should go to talk with the Catholic gays."
Yeah,
love it. That's interesting. And I completely agree. Like, I find it's pretty easy for a lot of folks to talk about almost damn near everything else. Like especially in the gay community, like just dicks and ass and this and that. But then when it comes down to like spirituality and religion and things like that, it is such a vulnerable place to be. One way or the other, like you said, like, a lot of people have been hurt by it, or whatever the veil that a lot of people cast of it, and it might not even really be the reality, but a lot of times kind of utilize and weaponize religion and spirituality and faith and things like that against folks, that it does turn a lot of people off. So it sounds like oh, go ahead.
Just real quick, I do feel like there is this theme within queer culture to almost avoid topics that are too serious or avoid topics that are too meaningful, because and we talked about this in a couple of our episodes, a lot of us find, our tribes with people that enjoy going out and having fun, and then if you bring a really serious subject, to the table, like, I don't know, dealing with coming out, or like reconciling your spiritual or religious background, or any of those things, it's hard for a lot of, I think, queer people to dive into those conversations, in part because those are serious conversations, and it removes the veil that people, or the veneer that people put on themselves about, I'm perfect, I'm this, I have my shit together, I know what's going on. And then the minute that you start talking about something real, it's to your point, Melissa, it's like a mood killer in a sense.
Yes.
But then there are those that really embrace the conversation and embrace the authenticity and diversity of thought and ideas and all of that. And so you can have really great relationships forming out of that. But I think a lot of people are, especially younger queers are, and I'm using the queer term collectively, so don't come at me with there are a whole bunch of us out here. I know that they are.
Cancel.
But I do feel like there is that resistance to have deeper, more meaningful conversations just in general.
Yeah, I'm having two thoughts about that. One is I think that there's a lot of shame that people have, right? And queer folks have like a lot of shame that was put on us by everybody, right? Like by other people. And then even if we try to deny it, it's in there, right?
It exists.
So when you're drinking too much, or when you get hooking up with someone that's bad, like you get to a breaking point at some point, your life feels like, it can happen, you can go down, and then you just try to like, okay, everything is okay now. Mm-hmm. And without dealing with that inner, our inner pain. And I think we don't know how to deal with our shame oftentimes, and it's not we don't know if it's a safe space. And when you have these conversations about religion, it'll bring up all that stuff, and you have to be ready to do that work personally, so you feel safe to have that conversation. And not everybody has that. But what we're trying to do also with the podcast is try to normalize that idea of that we all feel a little less than. It's been put on us that we're not enough. We're not enough of something, right? And try to like normalize that experience, but also talk about how that experience doesn't have to try to counter that narrative that we are enough. So we try to get there with that healing so that people do feel safe. But I fully understand when you're told you're wrong, why wouldn't you now want to party? I want to have fun. Let me live my life now that I can, and I don't want to deal with that stuff. But it catches up to you. I think it catches up to you. So you've got to deal with it. And the second thing I think is we are so conditioned to not talk about sex, religion, or politics, right? Isn't that the rule? Like, you go to a dinner party, do not talk about sex, religion, and politics. And our podcast, that's all we do, right?
Same here.
Ours too. Ours too.
Yeah. And so people have to be ready to face all that they might not be comfortable. And how do we be comfortable with it being uncomfortable? And that's a scary place to be.
I think there's a little level of, I was going to say this, I think part of that comes with understanding what vulnerability means too, being able to put yourself in a situation to deal with those deep parts of you. Because for me, I think what helped me as a Black gay man be more confident with my spirituality and my religion was I started coaching at a private Catholic high school at the age of 19. And I was an out coach at the same time.
That will do it.
And so, right. So being an out coach, Black at a predominantly private white Catholic school, I'm fighting all the way up the hill, But then to see over time, and I coached at that school for 10 years before I moved to Seattle, then turned around and coached at another private girls Catholic high school. But throughout this journey, I've learned that the trauma that I had personally gone through and experienced within religion, it was the person and not the religion that had caused the trauma. And it took me being able to put myself and be vulnerable in that situation to be around religion again, to understand the difference between the two. But I felt like I never would have gotten to that conclusion and then found the acceptance and the love that I have now at these schools had I not put myself in that position at the age of 19.
And that literally was going to be my next question to you too. Is just like, what is your history like that makes you feel so passionate about like spirituality and religion and doing the work and the growth that you're doing on your podcast now?
Yeah.
I think, and I feel like I hear it in your story also, it's basically not understanding it. Like having to be in a space which doesn't have any meaning to you and having to go there every Sunday with your parents, with your family. It's something like me being from Spain that it's surrounding me, even if it's not just because going to church every Sunday, is because it's in the culture itself, right? And being like, okay, I have to be in this kind of like a spectacle or however you want it, but I see it as something like that. I don't see it as something meaningful and something that at all resonates with me. Like, who am I adoring? Why am I adoring a God? Like, I didn't find any connection with the word prayer, with what a miracle can be, with the scripture at all. So it was like, this is just a bunch of lies when I was growing up, right? To the point that I completely abandoned my faith and I started not going to church, and luckily my parents allowed me when I was 18 to stop doing that. But the reconnection that we are feeling with all these words that I just named in all this process, through learning what genuinely to queer people that have had to really fight for themselves to understand these words and go on a journey of their own without really much guidance, and get to the bottom of like what a miracle is, what God is, what heaven is, what hell is, and make it have meaning for you, which is at the end of the day is what the spirituality is for this person, for every person, right? That's what keeps us going right now with the podcast, right? Is having, like, the other day we had an interview with this with Mandy, who is a scholar of divinity school, and she kind of like explained me what a blessing was, you know, and I really disconnected with the idea of like blessing the food, and the way that she explained it and the way that she blessed our podcast at the end. And it was like, oh, now it makes sense. It's basically like, okay, let's throw all our amazing energy and all our spirit into what we're gonna do, whatever it is. I never had that growing up. For me, like, the prayers growing up were basically a repeated word over and over.
Got it.
So all this podcast is about that kind of, for me, renaming words, finding meaning in things that didn't in the past, and things that work for me, for my life as a person that lives here in the earth, not
personalizing it for yourself. Yeah.
It's great.
I think for me, my experience was more is that I did connect to a lot of the lessons and the teachings, but I also saw a lot of hypocrisy. And so my thing is like, hey, like, this is what's important to me, and how are you acting this way? So to me, and then also for me, it was a lot about my gender, because my gender expression did not fit what I was told a woman should look like in my community, because I come from a Hasidic Jewish community. It's very, very specific, very like genderized. I don't know if that's a word, but right. And so the girls and boys, and they're kept separate, and like this is until marriage. And so for me, it was a lot of like, I don't know why I don't fit, but like giving that, them, they told me I didn't fit, right? I felt okay. And they were like, this is not working for us. Like, this is not working for us. So for me, it's like, how can I not be working? Like, what did I do? And so really trying to understand and grasp, like, what are the actual teachings? What is about the image and like the cultural and societal things? And what is the actual things that have meaning to me that I can hold on to? So what Pelayo and I have discovered a lot is reclaiming our spirituality. So for me, it's not necessarily the ideas, like blessing. I find those things touching, but it's more the idea of like, spirituality can be anything. Like, I decide what it is to me. Like, I get to choose. This feels good. This feels right. This makes me a better person, connects me to my higher self, my higher being. That's good. Like, other people telling me what to do and what not to do, like, I knew that wasn't good, but I had to live with it until I left it. And then I kind of, and then I let it all go, because I was like, this doesn't work for me. And then I feel like we all need a spiritual life, because it's what, to me now, that means is connecting to my gut. I have a knowing. We all have a knowing of what is right and wrong in ourselves, and how we're connected to our higher purpose, we all know when we're on the right like path.
Absolutely.
So like that's been super powerful to be like, let's connect there. Let's go back to like the fact that I am like loved by whatever being that is, whatever, like if it's God or it's the universe or whatever it is, like just because I am me, and precisely because I am me, not because I'm giving anything up of who I am, right? So like our queerness adds to the fact that we're lovable. Like our queerness adds to our intrinsic like worth. So to us, that's really what we're passionate about.
I love that. And I mean, obviously it's about you guys, but just a quick history of me. It's just like, I've had a similar thing like that, because obviously growing up as a pastor's kid, shocked. Okay.
Not this week.
Where was that last week? That was last week.
I know, I didn't even say it last week, but it's just like, it took a while, even though like I was always connected, because like I played the piano and all this stuff. So I was just always immersed in the culture of the church, but I always knew I was gay, you know, and I always struggled with it, because as I got older and things like that, realized I was trying to protect others more than even myself. And I was trying to protect whatever that image and that supposed relationship was supposed to be. But then once you finally realize that, literally, like when you just even think of the word relationships, my relationship like that Dawon and I have is going to be different than the relationship Jerrell and I have. And I'm not expecting them to have the same kind of relationship with me. So like, once I kind of thought about that with like God or the universe or whatever the being is, it's just like, why are we trying to have the same relationship that Melissa is having with God? Why am I trying to have the same relationship that Pelayo is having with God? Like, none other relationship in your life is like that, you know? And so once I kind of got that, I was like, hold on, then I'm cool. Like, I'm good, because our relationship is good. Like, I don't need to try to have the same relationship that my dad has with God, because I am not my dad. I am not my mom. I am not Jerrell. I am not Dawon, you know? And it takes a while to get there, and it's still a work in progress day in, day out. Like, you still got to do the work and things like that. But once you kind of see it from that eyes, is at least what helped me, just like, wow, it's literally simply a relationship, and my relationship is me and God's business. you know?
But it's funny you say that, because like I think of like, because even for me, like, I mean, I'm not a PK, but like I played the drums at my church. I was in the choir. I would go to like Bible camp in the summertime back in Indiana with my grandma. Like, I grew up in the church as well. And, you know, hearing phrases like the word is the word, meaning like it is concrete, it is this way, you know, like those type of messaging, like, makes it feel like what you're being told is the only thing that it could possibly be. And it's not until you're older when you understand, kind of like Melissa was saying, like that knowing of what's right and what's wrong. And then that's when you're like, oh, wait, hold up. If you really pay attention to any scripture, no matter what the religion is, you can find a phrase or wording to set up to make it be whatever you want it to be, you know? And it's not until you understand that you can find parts of any scriptures that can resonate with you, then you realize that you can take that ownership of your own spirituality. And it's not based on what someone told you growing up. It's based off of you and what you seek for out of the word.
Have you two experienced any dynamics changing in like your friendships outside of between the two of you, as a result of you now really diving into the podcast and really owning your own sense of spirituality and inviting those different ideas to be presented on your podcast? Has that impacted your relationships either with family members or friends or people that were close to you?
It's a really good question. Well, I have a really close friend now who's a lesbian priest. I mean, that's
because of you.
Cool.
Okay. Melissa, can you include me also in the friendship?
No, it's not your friend. It's her relationship.
No, just because because I saw Liz today. We became study partners, but it's true. We're all like friends, but she's like my study partner now, and I'm learning studying the Bible for the first time. I'm actually like learning the New Testament together with her, written, and the one that I'm reading is that it's written by Jewish scholars, so it connects like the history that I was taught and the the Bible or the Torah that I was taught to like these studies, and like learning that with the priest and having a different point of view. It's a really interesting experience. So I feel like my personal spiritual journey is affected by it, or like my processing of it, understanding the lessons I was taught, understanding the history and the time period, like what was going on, how other people view the world. So I feel like we've developed a lot of new relationships.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I do have to say that also kind of like more on like the negative part, not negative, but kind of like filtering part, I would call it. Like there's people that is like they're really not interested at all in what we have to say. And it's kind of like, I'm sure that you also faced it with your podcast that is like, oh, you're my friend, you don't even care about what I'm creating. I mean, not listen to it create.
My partner.
But like,
don't even listen, don't even share.
Nothing. But then when it's like, when I'm talking about like, oh, like we talk about spirituality and queerness and stuff, and it's like you're talking to like a dead body, like there's no interest there. So you clearly start kind of like thinking to yourself, who do you surround with? And if you want to be surrounded by somebody who's like at all interested in something that's deeper than makeup or a reality show or something else, which is amazing to have an interest in that. It's just, do you have other things, So yeah, with some friends, it's there's a disconnect that comes up when you start getting this deep and intense.
Yeah.
It is like a little bit of a layer being peeled back in the relationships, right? As you start having, because as we've started this podcast and, we're coming up on, like 100 episodes here pretty soon. And, 2 years of doing this, this has been quite a consuming endeavor, a very interesting endeavor, very eye-opening endeavor for us individually and collectively. And I don't know how we would have ever made it through the pandemic without one another and having this as a platform to express some of the things that we've been feeling. But it does start to peel layers back in your peripheral relationships as you start to have conversations with them and you talk about, oh, I have a podcast. I'm like, what's your podcast about? And we talk about this. And it's like, oh, well, and then it, again, that layer then becomes peeled back. And I can so imagine how that happens with you all, when you're, having conversations with folks around you and, they say, oh, well, what do you do on your blah, blah, blah night? And you say, oh yeah, I record my podcast. And then it's a
what's
whole
your podcast
layer
about? It's like, oh, it's about spiritual. And then they're like, oh,
yeah. Yeah.
But it's funny because like at the beginning of the podcast, I found myself feeling like I was almost filtering myself on the podcast and be like, I will only say this on the podcast. And now I'm like, if I can't be who I am on the podcast in my everyday life, I don't want you around me. Like, because I found myself, this is the genuine me. I found like I was like, I just unleashed my true self within the podcast. Same. And now I'm like, if I can't have these conversations, if I have to worry about I'm being too real with you or being too honest or too open or too deep with you, that's too much pressure on me. I don't have time to be doing that. Like, so
Jerrell unleashed, but she's wearing pants today.
Right.
Okay.
The one day.
Have you found a common thread? So like, I know you guys actually started your podcast around the similar time that we did, if I recall correctly. Has there been a similar thread that you have found throughout each episode that you're like, this is a foundation right here? Whatever spirituality looks like for each person, is there a common thread between them all?
Yeah.
I would say that queerness is very spiritual and being gay is very spiritual. And it has, through history, it has happened. And there's like a lot of examples of it. And that how these people, LGBTQ people, have been like connection with the spiritual world and mentors and guiders through the spiritual world. And the idea of not including LGBTQ people in the spiritual life or in the religious life is something that is new in some areas, proposed and move forward through certain religious institutions, and it's not something that is like word of the Lord, like you say, like it's not like that. And everybody that comes has had their own journey to understand religion better than so many religious leaders out there. They have explained to me the pillars of spirituality better than my priest back in Spain. Because they have been kicked out, and they have really had to do their own research and their own years and years of trying to make sense of things their own way.
Yeah, I think that every leader of any really religion or any like group has always had to turn things on its head a little bit and been like, hey, I see it differently. Let's do that this way, right? I had to uncover newer things. And we generally don't praise people that are followers. We praise people that are thought leaders, right? And they're seeing things in different ways. If you think about like Jesus, and then the people that are following Jesus, like as I'm reading the Bible, I'm just like, he was Jewish, and he was like, hey, I don't like how you're doing this. I'm going to change it now because I think I know better. And I think sometimes what happens is in religion, it becomes organized religion. Then we're like, he said to do it this way. Let's do it exactly this way. When it doesn't seem aligned with the mission or purpose of that. The mission is let's make sure that we're constantly our best selves, not somebody else's best self, right? So I feel like, I think that what we found is that people have been having to do that journey because we're forced to do it. Because we're queer, because religion has been like, there's no place for you here. We're like, hey, there's a better way. And I know my queerness to be such a big part of me. I didn't get to choose that. And if you believe in God, why would God make that happen, right? So what they're saying is good and bad cannot be the truth, the whole truth. And so you're like now having to do the work to uncover that. So I really like what Pelayo was saying. I think queer people have been on the forefront of like having to be kinder, be more forgiving. All this religious stuff that we are taught, we're the ones that embody it. Because we're like, hey, let's all see this, all the crap that you're doing, and let's be better. Let's like show you how we all have to forgive our families and our churches. We're taught forgiveness. You know what I mean? Like we're showing them, we're showing them how to do that. So I feel like queer people, I think, are so important in spiritual life. I think that churches and synagogues and like any religious group can benefit so much from our queerness and the way that we see it. And some of that is also seeing things differently, right? Like the priest that we're friends with, Liz Edmond is her name. She has this, she wrote this book called Queer Virtue.
Queer Virtue.
Yeah, and she talks about,
I know, I was like, put my pen there.
Right? So I think that's really important to see how because we have to process it differently, we have to do that work, how much deeper and more profound and more authentic our spiritual life is, and and then there's also, I think the need for community is something that's really, it ties in a lot. Like a lot of people that have left churches, right, or have been really involved in church, what they miss a lot is that community.
The fellowship.
The fellowship, the need for belonging and all of that. So that's been like a really big thing. I feel like all of our guests have had that experience of how do I find community that I feel completely, I'm allowed to be myself.
Yeah. And that's interesting. Like even during like quarantine life and COVID life, how have you found community? Because it's a lot harder. Obviously to congregate. Like, I mean, if you're congregating, stay away from me because
right, because I don't want it.
Exactly. But it's just like one thing we always kind of say is just like Dawon mentioned earlier, thank God for this podcast, because like we listened back through some episodes, especially like during like the beginning and then like George Floyd and like all this like Black Lives Matter and stuff, and listening back at some of those episodes, how raw we were and just like emotional. I don't know how I would have been able to process some of that without weekly, at least minimally, talking to these two, and then obviously I talk to other people, but just having this platform to talk deeply about stuff and to be vulnerable like that, and then put it out there for everyone to listen to, you know, I don't know how I would have gotten through, and I don't know if I would be as okay right now in December if I didn't have this platform. So like, do you guys rely on each other, the guests and things like that? And how have you utilized COVID in trying to find that sense of community?
Yeah, we did this very powerful thing that I really enjoy. I read this article at the beginning of the year that kind of like structured the 7 pillars of spirituality, and how before they used to always be given by religious institutions, and now people were finding their own way of rediscovering that, right? So for example, how like community used to be given in church, and now community, you can find it online in a YouTube video, commenting on the video, right, and interacting with each other. And like that, it was 7 different pillars, and what we did was every week we gathered a small group through Zoom, and we discussed that particular pillar. So we brought people in to talk about like how to prepare a ritual, how to create community, how to find inspirational leaders. And every week we kind of like were adapting to what was going on in society, but the focus was on that particular topic. And that was really cool to see what are the new ways. It was really interesting to find that this religious realignment that is going on, what's the future of religion, if these religious institutions are not really adapting to the pace of the times, right? Or if they are, or if they would. But yeah, that was really, really interesting, those 7 weeks that we did.
Yeah, and it definitely helped us because we did this every week. We had a focus and we made sure we prepared it. And I think when you were helping other people, it makes you feel like you have a purpose. Like, okay, so my pain, I can use that, right? It's just like really helpful. And then Pelayo and I to process and be like, what do we talk about? What's helpful to us? And like, how do we get people to talk? So in that hour that we would do it, or we really got lost in that. And it was like something that we can look forward to, other people can look forward to. And then they're like, oh, this helped us a lot. And then that would help me through the week, you know, being like, oh, okay. So some things like,
I can make it one more week. Woo!
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's real.
Isn't it interesting how there are parallels between, you know, I'm not going to use religion, but more spirituality and therapy, right? Yes. Because in religion, it's much more organized. There is community, but in therapy, it's usually, you know, one-on-one. It's much more intimate. It's much more personal. It's much more unique, and it can be expressed very diversely. I was just sitting here thinking about what we've been talking about, and just really, it's just amazing how these two concepts have so many parallels in terms of how they heal you, in terms of how you get refreshed, how you get filled up, how you know, filled up so much that it overflows. And it's both with the concept of spirituality, however that gets expressed and you experience it. And, you know, for those that experience therapy in whatever way that you experience therapy, and therapy can be as simple as talking to your mom or talking to your friends every week, or, you know, going to talk to a professional, you know, that's helping you work through some things. So
yeah,
definitely. Like you didn't mention religion, you want to stay in spirituality, but if I go to my own experience, like growing up, I had to confess to my priest, right? And that's a very similar setting. You are basically sharing things that are very intimate in a one-on-one basis. And people are not really doing, I mean, people are doing that, but it's being reduced, right? So we're looking for all the things to substitute those needs that we have as human beings.
Yeah. I would.
So it's really
Pelayo,
interesting you point that out.
I do want to add though, like in when you just, I'm not sure, but what I understand from like movies, when you go to the confessions, right? Yeah, because that's how I know confessions.
Same here.
Same.
Oh, okay. Because you didn't. Okay, so because it's a Catholic thing, is it just purely a Catholic thing?
I think so. Yeah.
So Pelayo, when you go to confessional, you going thinking like I did something bad, and then you find a way to make it better? Is it like a judgment on yourself that you're just like,
It is a judgment. It is a judgment. So in that way, it's different.
Okay.
Although if done properly, I think a confession as a priest, I think people would go as to priest to kind of like share like their concerns and everything. Usually for me, they just gave you like a prayer to do.
Yeah.
Like pray 10 times.
Hail Mary.
Ave Maria. Yeah, Hail Mary.
Yeah. So the differentiation.
I couldn't be me because I'm too
Grace.
judgy. I'm like, but you did what?
You did what?
You know what? You out. Key strikes.
Have several
Tell me
seats.
more.
Right.
Tell me more.
The scripture says have several seats. Thank you.
Right.
Next.
They're like, there's a back door to this pew. You can come right around the back. Come on over now.
That's funny.
Yeah. And I would be more like, why do you think you like, you know, what's going on for you? I would try to understand, right?
same
Be like the
here.
therapy, right? Just be like, so I think that maybe is the differentiation. But the idea is that like as human beings talking to somebody else relieves us of our pain, of our shame, of our, you know, that. So maybe that's where the parallels are. But I think that's such an interesting thing because we found that meditation is very similar to prayer.
Absolutely.
Like visualization is similar to prayer, right? Like, so it's very interesting to see. I feel like those are just human needs that takes on like different forms throughout generations. Like, how do human beings give that language or find ways to explore that need that we have?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And without disregarding any of the two, but like the same people that sometimes be like, oh, like prayer doesn't work. Like, what do you believe in Jesus and stuff? Would be the ones that would be like with the crystals, kind of like setting intentions with the Lord.
Right. The first one calling Miss Cleo. Okay, now you believe in something, then.
Hey, there's a something for somebody out there.
Right.
Absolutely.
If you like it, I love it.
Yeah. I also think a part of that comes through to like just the struggle of when you internalize things. I feel like, you know, for some people, like the harder you are internally in yourself, maybe the deeper you have to keep searching, you know. When someone says like, oh, that doesn't work for me, I'm like, well, maybe that's because you still got some stuff inside that you need to figure out so that it can work for you. You know, like unpack those baggage first.
That's hard for people to hear.
Because it's true.
People to hear.
You know.
And it goes back to what Melissa said earlier. It's like you have to be ready for that. Like a lot of this stuff, you have to be willing to do the work. Like it's work.
It is.
Like, so it's just like if you're not willing to sweat it out.
Yeah. I do think one other thing you need is a support system. So if that's a therapist or a friend, like you were saying, somebody, because that can really, this shit's hard sometimes, right? Like,
say that again.
You gotta be ready. And then be safe. I feel like it's similar in the coming out. People are like, okay, come out when it's safe, when you can, when you're able, like have your like, you know, ducks in order and like know. So I feel like you have to be ready, but like in all of it, like your brain, your like body, your mind, safety, all of it.
So true.
Yeah. It's so hard because I feel like so much of today's world is we're conditioned to like care about what other people think of us. And so for there, we're trying to navigate what we think of ourselves and what other people think of us at the same time. We're like, well, what's the difference? You know, like, and then when you realize, well, they should both be the same. How you view yourself and how people view you should be the same thing. And if it's not, you're missing something in the equation there.
Yep, that's powerful. Yeah.
So how is dating life when you're one that's loving growing and loving spirituality and things like that? Like, is it easy to find folks that are on that same level, or is that a struggle, and are people open to wanting to you know, grow with you in that regard?
Yeah, that's been something. That's been like
I just took a shot.
That look, Melissa, that look you gave me said it all. Like there was some stories in there when she picked that look, like
some trials, some
tribulations. Do I put them on blast?
I have sent many partners to therapy. So I have been the person like
get a commission check.
Okay.
I know.
See, this is the reason that we all need to be hanging out. Because I think we've all sent a few people to therapy.
Yes. Yes, that's been the thing. Is like, okay, you know, that this is like, I usually, which is a problem because I become the therapist sometimes. It's my work that I do with my therapist of like, okay, I gotta make sure that I'm not the one in the position constantly helping somebody else heal. Because that's a lot, and it does not, I can't be fully
That's a word and a half right
yeah.
there.
But that's been a lot of that because I can see it, you know, I very, because I'm so inclined towards that stuff, it's such a big part of who I am. I see it, and not everyone's always ready to see it, or like, and so I become the safe person. They're starting to open it. It does something to me. I'm clearly playing into that dynamic. So that's something I'm working in therapy. But I have found people open to it, but then I become that, you know, and then it's like, go to therapy.
You are speaking my soul right now.
Yeah.
I feel so seen right now. When you said those words, like, oh, normally I become the therapist. I feel,
yes.
And sometimes we think we're the therapist.
Yeah.
And there's still shit we gotta work on it. We're like,
exactly.
It's like, oh, I thought I said a word today, and then like you think back later, you're like, oh shit, hold on, I got some work to do on myself still.
Even that fact of us being the therapist, I'm like, hey, what does it say about me? Do I think I'm not as lovable if I'm not helping other people? Do I think that's my like?
Exactly.
What is that?
And then you're like, what gives me the right to also say this?
It's like the ego in me. Exactly.
Yeah. It's all of that constantly, and like bringing that into the relationship. Pelayo though talk to him because he has his life figured out. When I said that, like, when he helps me with my life, I mean it.
So how did you get to that space, and what's your situation, boo? Right, we all
actually,
like LinkedIn.
Right.
We didn't mention when we started, but like one of the things was like for starting the podcast was like I was dating my boyfriend, and he is very connected with his religious life, and we went to church together for a few weeks, and we went to one in Brooklyn that it was a black church, he's black. I was not used to be in that kind of environment in terms of religion because it was a female pastor that I've never seen in my life.
It's very different.
Very different.
Yeah.
It was, I think,
was it loud?
Was it loud?
Yeah, it was loud. It was very funny. It really looked like a Netflix special. It was that funny. Yeah. And then it was the thing that got me the most was that she was reading a piece from the Bible that I've never read in my life or been mentioned to, which is the passages with Queen Esther. And she was referring to that and mentioning to a group of like young Girl Scouts girls that were attending the service, and she was mentioning I read the whole story. For anybody listening that doesn't know, it's that it's a woman that says no to the king to go naked to the palace, right? Something like that. Very, very summarized. Forgive me if I'm wrong. And the woman says no, basically. And I was ready to listen with like my Catholic mind. Oh, like she should be punished, like she shouldn't have done that, like all those things, right? Yeah. And then I was very surprised pleasantly to hear how she was basically titling the sermon, "There's always a time to say no." And it was an inspirational sermon for these young little Girl Scouts that were listening to it, and to empower them to be able, if at some point in the life of, I'm sad to say that almost any girl, you will have to say no, right? To men abusing you, to society abusing you, to people crossing boundaries that they should not have. And I just came out of that church thinking, wow, like this religious space can be empowering and can like build society and can help the girls that in the future will be women to be empowered and independent. And I was so shocked that I said, I want to look for more spaces like this, you know?
Yeah.
So that's my story.
No,
that's
Pelayo, that's
awesome.
great, but share about the relationship, how you are stable.
She wants the juicy thing. What
See,
does she want to know? What
She
does
has
she
a
want to
podcast
know?
as well.
Right.
The therapist came out right then and there.
She like, I know what the people want to know.
Right,
So I'm gonna
the
ask
people
these
wanna know.
questions.
Exactly.
I'm not the host, Melissa. Go back to your seat.
Like, we want the tea. This is
What do you wanna
Minority
know?
Report. Come on, spill the tea now, boo.
No, it's just, it's like kind of like my first time in such a stable relationship, and it's great. I'm doing a lot of creative things. I'm focusing on myself and on being able to just do whatever I want without having to like take care of somebody else, because everybody takes care of themselves. And I would recommend 100% to be in a healthy relationship to anybody.
That's a word.
I guess
That's a word.
for me, and I guess this is asking all of you, like when you were dating, was religion part of the boxes that need to be taken? Or I hate using boxes. I don't want to put people in boxes, but was religion something that had to be accepted by your partner, or practice or not practice? Did that matter? Did it matter to you at all?
That didn't matter to me. I actually was more on the side of, oh, this is weird, if the person was very religious.
Yeah.
That's interesting, too.
But not anymore at all. But it was kind of like, oh, like, why would it be that it, like, I didn't find it a meaning, but now I understand, and now I love the way that he lives his religion, his spirituality. I do think that it's more pure than so many others. But no, it's not like a yes or a no filter for me.
For me, it used to be a no. Like when Pelayo's like boyfriend was really religious, I was just like, what are you doing? Like, what is happening? How is like, he loves Jesus. Like he is full on, like really religious. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I was judging that, being like, okay, he's cute, but also like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like, but then seeing how like, I think what's beautiful to see is that how when religious life can be used to like, for people to take ownership of themselves and actually live a life that's what's the word?
Meaningful and purposeful and integrity.
Yeah, and not put your shit, integrity. That's the word I was like, yes. And to see how that works with both Pelayo and your partner, like having that, like that's like, okay, if religion does that, like I'm good with that. Like I think that's a beautiful thing. To be able to like have religion actually make you a good person, like that's your guideline.
I also feel that it's not religion that does that; it's the people's intention going into it, right? Because religion, by its very nature, is dogmatic. It's oppressive. It's to put you into a box, as Jerrell put it. It's organized religion is really about control. It's not about the celebration and expression of whatever it is that you're seeking and that you need to experience. And so, I think there are those that become really impactful through their own individual expression of spirituality and faith and whatever that is, that can work within the confines of religion, but religion itself is really challenging, I think.
That's interesting, because I kind of almost see it the opposite way. I feel like religion isn't, the people utilizing weaponizing religion.
Exactly. Exactly.
And like, because like I had this conversation with my dad actually this summer, because there was an article that came out how white folks utilize religion to weaponize religion against Black folks for slavery. And a lot of the things we know nowadays came from that time frame. I mean, it's throughout history, even before then, but I feel like religion is religion. It's the intent of that person, what they want to do with religion, and making it the norm, making it feel like, oh, it's religion's fault. No, you were just an asshole and utilized religion.
I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you, but I don't disagree with you, but the point that I'm making is organized religion by its very nature was created to control people. Created in effect to say, this is how you do this thing. And so when we think about
the organized part of that word or that sentence.
Absolutely,
organized.
and I don't want to give the
religion by
impression that that religion is bad, but the construct of religion as an institution
See, I don't know
and
if I
how it was
fully agree,
formed,
though.
it's the history of it.
I
It's,
think
have- I have
history.
a thought.
My dad has a
It's the
PhD
history.
in it. I lived it all
I
day.
have a
I mean,
thought.
okay, Melissa, yes,
I have
uh-huh.
a thought.
It's okay, and it's
Mhm.
okay. Hold on, it's okay that we disagree, by the way, because I know a
But I'm
lot of
wondering-
people
Right.
roll their
Yeah.
eyes and things like that out there, not here, out there.
Mhm.
And it's okay for us to disagree on that.
Yeah.
So that's the point of the show. So here we go.
I do wonder, though. I wonder if this can be a bridge. Okay, so I'm wondering this. So this
is the
is my
therapy
thought,
part.
right?
Right.
No, yeah. Just the analyzing, it never stops. I tell you, it's not.
Love it.
So, but this is okay. So I think this is the thing is, right, when we get into a community, and I think when you talk about organized religion, we're talking community.
Mhm.
So there are certain rules we have to uphold.
Right.
And those are who creates those boundaries and those boxes.
Exactly.
That's where that issue can be of people enforcing and policing other people's
Exactly.
behavior. So it's the way that we then take that religion to be like, this is the book that we're all
You
following.
said it way better
and,
than I did. Yeah, I agree.
right? So that's where the organized religion becomes dogmatic,
Right.
becomes this is how we don't really care about your personal thing. Because I grew up with it all being about community, right? Community is more important than the individual. My question then is how can we actually be a part of a community if we're not our full selves? We have to first deal with our individual stuff before we can be ourselves. But I think that's the issue. I think that organized religion often puts community first without making sure the people in the community are healthy and well and
Right.
safe and coming from a good place. And that can lead to that dogmatic thing, which is just control.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there are parts to Dawon's part, though, like to his point, though, too, there are parts in the Bible itself that are problematic, that
Yes.
encourage that organized, hatred into certain parts, and so
For
like,
sure.
and that's just any type of religion, all has that, no homophobia, sexism, like all sorts of stuff.
Well,
And
providing
Yeah, but it
rules
also has
providing
stoning.
rules for what purity
Right.
looks like, and putting people in certain categories where you're dividing and conquering your own congregation.
Mhm.
Those kinds of things are not
Yeah.
intended to bring people together. They're intended to separate and
Yes.
control. That's the
That's
what
intention
they-
behind
Yeah.
those kinds of rules. It's not the expression of spirituality.
So,
It is,
yeah.
this is
Yeah.
how you are supposed to act. And yes,
Yeah.
these are the rules that you're supposed to follow. And if you're not following these rules, then here are the consequences that come
Here
as
are
a
the
result of that.
consequences.
Right.
Yes.
But
It
this is
kinda
a
goes back
this
to, like,
and
the
that
beginning
moment.
of- Say again.
This is a this and that moment, because like I think
Yeah.
it's one of those things where there are
Yeah.
words in there that can be harmful, but then at the same time there are other words in the Bible or in religion that are also just as beneficial and loving and caring as well.
Yeah.
And so it's up to the
Yeah.
individual as well to choose the wording. Again, you have the
Yeah.
choice to choose the wording, but again, the religion itself has the wording too. So it's from
Yes,
both
but
sides.
we do not take all the stuff. There's so much shit in there, right? There's
Yeah.
so much things that we do not take. So we decide when someone wants to control, they're like, hey,
Right.
this is how you're going to follow. We're going to scare the shit out of you. We're going
Right,
to tell you
right.
that this is God, is going to smite you and all of that stuff. And we are actually going to do that dirty work for God.
Mhm.
We're going to, if you break those rules, right? We're just going to
Exactly.
police all of that. But we don't follow all the stuff. There is no more stoning.
Facts.
There is no more stuff. And we look at other cultures that still do that. We're like, oh, look at them. They're insane. But we are doing
Meanwhile,
that. Yes, exactly.
Mhm.
So I think religion does not have to be taken, because for me, it's a book. If it
Yeah.
helps you live your life well, choose the ones that help you live your life well. And
What's
I think
what's fascinating about the whole conversation, I think, because it's less about, putting emphasis, for me anyways, it's less about putting emphasis on a specific kind of religious expression, a specific kind of scripture, a specific kind of way of worship. And it's more about really tapping into your authentic self and how you need to express yourself. And so when I think you hit the nail on the head, well, both of you guys hit the nail on the head when you're talking about it's me coming to terms with what I need and what I want and doing it in the fullness of myself. And however that gets expressed,
in whatever fashion that get expressed, and with whomever that gets expressed, that allows you to be the fullness of yourself and express yourself in that way. That's the piece that really matters.
And the fullness of yourself could be an actual asshole, and you can find that in religion too.
Absolutely, that part.
Yes.
And it goes back to that relationship too at the beginning. It's just like I think
that blew my mind, by the way. That blew my mind. I love that. The simplicity and the like clarity of that. Just being like, my relationship is different with these people. Like, I feel like that should be on like t-shirt. Like, have you like seriously, like that is everything that I like we talk about all the time in such a simple, clear.
I'll let you have it. I'll let you, or at least lease it.
Yes, thank you. I really love that.
Yeah, especially because in relationships, you don't need a third person. Like, you have a relationship with somebody else, and that's it. Like, but there's so many people depending on a third party to access God, and that's like the gatekeeping that keeps happening.
Well, to play devil's advocate here, sometimes you need a therapist, or sometimes you need a third person.
And sometimes you need a throuple or something. I don't know.
Yes.
That's true. That's true.
On that note, you know what? We're going to get to Ask Your Aunties. We can talk about, literally, we're going to have you back on, because I could talk about this all day. But let's get to the Ask Your Aunties question. And what time is it? Ask
your auntie.
Hey. Let's see here. So the Ask Your Auntie question this week, it says, I've been having the issue of not being able to differentiate the difference between intrigue and attract. Is this the right one? I thought there was the one. Oh, yeah. Okay, sorry. I've been having the issue of not being able to differentiate the difference between intrigue and attraction. I will come to the conclusion that someone's personality is striking. The hard part is figuring out why. Am I attracted to them, or am I simply just interested? This isn't necessarily a question of dire need, but rather just asking, is there something others have felt?
Please let me go last, because this is too much for my little brain.
Pelayo, we'll go with you.
You know what I think? I think that there's this. I think the concept is a little bit wrong in a way, and let me tell you why. Like, I feel like there doesn't really need to be a binary in this, right? It doesn't have to be like intrigue and attraction. I feel like sometimes we kind of like focus on relationships in a kind of like a binary way of like, oh, I like this person, I don't like them, I love them, I don't like them, I don't love them, and try to kind of like ask the world, like, oh, do I love them because I have these signs, but I don't have these other signs, and the person has these categories, but they don't have these other categories, and with all that, we do an analysis of if we should be with that person or not, right? And I think sometimes like being with a person and loving a person is less about trying to like differentiate if it's intrigue or attraction. It's kind of like more of like, okay, there's something that I'm feeling here, and if I want to be with this person and it fits with like my ideals of what a relationship is, and a lot of times will be just like making yourself better and being happy with that person, and then you'll create the love. I don't know if I'm expressing myself correctly, but basically I think we have an obsession with love as something that comes from the skies, and like it's very similar to the concept of God, or how Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said that hope is a muscle, love is a verb, and you have to be like, yeah, okay, maybe there's intrigue, maybe there's attraction, but like if you want to develop a relationship with that person, I don't see a big importance on that difference. I don't know if that would be like my answer.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm down with that.
Melissa, what you thinking?
So I think why do you need to differentiate? I think if you're intrigued, continue seeing where that leads, like see where that leads, if that leads to an attraction, right? So I would say, like, if I'm intrigued by somebody, I'll hang out with that person. And if I find that there's an attraction, then that's what that is. And if not, It'll be something else. Clearly, to me, intrigue is attraction, but where that attraction leads you to and what kind of attraction, is that a physical attraction? Is that a sexual? Is that just like a friendship? I think we're all attracted to in some ways. So I would say like, yeah, give it time. But I felt that way for sure. If others feel that way, yeah. We don't always know, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
I think you nailed it. Like, I don't think you have to. I think a lot of times we just get so caught up of everything has to be so perfect, and it has to. I want to meet my husband at the Starbucks on the corner of 2nd and 15th, and it's just like, get out of your damn way. If you're intrigued, see if it goes somewhere. If you're not intrigued, stay your ass at home. And I get it. Like, I used to be that way. It's just like, oh, I want this picture perfect from the get-go. It's not going to be picture perfect from the get-go, because like whatever you deem as picture perfect is honestly a lot of times not what comes from within you. It's like from like some movie and someone told you something. Like you said, if the intrigue might lead to an attraction, or attraction might lead to even more of an intriguement. It doesn't have to be separate. It can be together. It can be this gray area.
Is that a cousin of entanglement?
It's entanglements up there too. Thanks, Jada.
You know, as I'm thinking about this, I have one other thing. I actually have felt this. I remember I went out with this woman who was like 30 under 30 in Forbes, like this really accomplished person. I was not sure I was like into her looks. And I remember talking to my roommate at the time being like, is it bad if I go out with this person? Because I just think they're interesting and cool. I want to meet them, but I don't know if I actually like them. Yeah. So like, I think that was kind of it. And then I was just like, I'm going to go. So, but we definitely had this conversation of like, is that fair? Like, if I'm like, I'm kind of into you and I'm not into that, like, is that fair? I ended up sleeping with the person. I think I found her.
You find someone attractive.
You were attractive.
She did say she sent a couple people to therapy, so she did disclose that at the beginning of the episode.
Was she on Forbes? Was she on Forbes 30 under 30 the next year is the question.
Right. Or was she the dirty 30?
Or was she number 31? What do you think, Dawon?
I'm struggling. I always struggle with some of these questions, these like semantic questions. Yeah. On the one hand, I think a lot of gay men, I'll just think about my personal experience. There have been times when I have been really intrigued by a person, but not physically attracted to them, sexually attracted to them, or I do get intellectually attracted to people, like hard. I do.
Ooh, pun intended.
It does something to me, but intrigue, like that kind of intellectual attraction, that intriguement, that personality attraction is really strong for me, more so than the physical part. Physical part is important, but again, for me, physical part is not as important. But I think the point that I was trying to make is, I think a lot of people, a lot of gay men, and like I said, I lump myself into this, kind of go out thinking that if you find someone interesting, and I'm just going to use a word that's somewhere in between the two, between intrigue and attraction. If you find somebody interesting, that equates to you need to date them, you need to sleep with them, and it has to be something other than you find that person interesting. And so, I struggle with this kind of a question because I see some of the nuance in that in terms of perception of how am I supposed to navigate this world. And what I've learned in my seasoned years is that I can find people that are incredibly attractive, and I would never be interested in them,
right?
Whether I'm, in a relationship or not. I would never be interested in that romantic part or the sexual part, but they can still be incredibly attractive, and I find them attractive. And then conversely, I can find people that are incredibly intriguing and that I don't find attractive physically or whatever, but I want to pursue something with them. And again, I just think that we need to give ourselves license to explore what you're feeling and not put so much of this weight that we carry on our shoulders. You know, like, oh, what is it supposed to look like? Or the person that I'm supposed to be dating, or what are my friends gonna think when, you know, they're not, you know, as hot as what the last person that I dated, or as wealthy, or as intellectually sound, or accomplished, or whatever those things are. Like, putting all that stuff on just the connection, because what I'm reading out of this is that if you're introduced to someone and there is a connection, and we all know that connection, like when you meet somebody, just like you two met at that Russian party, out of all the people that were there, somehow the universe found a way to bring you together, not once, but twice. So your energies attracted one another to the point that you're now here today, and you've had this beautiful friendship as a result of it. And I just find that, again, from a gay male perspective, we are so fleeting and disconnected to things that are real and authentic, that we misconstrue these things to try to put purpose on them when we haven't even figured out what it is.
Yeah, I completely agree with all of you. You know, one thing I will say to the person who wrote this question is, I hope you're not making being intrigued bad and attractive good, or putting them against each other, because there's space for both. Because of the truth of the fact that you can be intrigued and follow that path and follow it to something good or bad. Same thing as being attracted. We've all been there before. We're like, ooh, this person's cute. And then we get like, ooh, that's
and then your soul is ugly.
Right, you know. And you
didn't ruin your credit score. You got kicked out of your apartment.
So, you know, so I would just, you know, say, don't think that, you know, one is better than the other. If you're feeling intrigued, that means that there is something there that you don't have an answer for. And the only way to get an answer to that question is by following it, you know. And I think when it comes to attraction, I think though that's safe because we know what we're attracted to. So it's familiar. So we tend to be like, oh, well, if it's intriguing, I'm gonna back away from it because that's too unknown. It's too foreign to me. But I'm gonna go with what I'm attracted to because I know this is what I'm into. So I know what I'm getting into more so than the intriguing part. You know? And so, and the only reason why I can say that because I feel like my number, y'all don't know this, but like, I think
we should have made this the drink.
Right, we should have.
But the reason why I feel like my number has always been so low is because if I was attracted to someone, I felt like I could play out that story right then in that moment. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna get there. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. It's gonna go here.
FYI.
My sexual partner number. Yeah. We're gonna get there. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. We're gonna do this. It's gonna go here. Boom. The end. Whereas when I was intrigued with someone, I didn't know, and I felt more like I don't know where this is gonna go. So I'm gonna go this way. You know. So people, y'all might see my past with people I've been with, and some of y'all will be like, what? Because I don't have a standard. I've been with all sorts of different types of people because I don't think you're unknown, intrigued. I didn't know. I couldn't predict it, and that's just me as a planner. So I navigate towards being more intrigued because to me, life is about learning. And if you're not learning, and if you're not trying new things, are you truly ever living?
Okay, you got deep. Like, whoa, okay. Love it. I love it. Like, I love this whole conversation and all of that, but I'm loving that. Like, that's like making my head spin, being like, oh, is that what that was, right? Because I think I had that guilty idea with this woman that I had mentioned, like, a while back. I had that idea of like, I need to find that person immediately attractive, and if not, am I doing something wrong? I'm finding something about them, and it's not because they have money. I'm finding something interesting. There's the power, or there's like they're young and they figured something out. Like I want to learn, you know, I want to know. But I'm loving that. Yes. Are you, if you're not like learning, and I love the distinction that you made about your attraction is familiar and you know what to expect, as opposed to intrigue. Intrigue is like, it's getting the wheels in your mind, like going, it's really like, I love that.
Yeah. It's kind of like, is he going to choke me? Or is he going to hug me? You know, like, I don't know. I'm intrigued.
Let's find out.
And that's the clip.
For community, continue to send your Ask Your Aunties questions in, aya@minoriteareport.com, or DM us. If you know us personally, text us, whatever you need to. We obviously like the segment. We do it in every episode now. It's a staple. So please continue to send them in. Yeah, that was a good one. That was a
good one. Yeah.
Another topic that's kind of been heavy, I know we're kind of getting towards the end of the episode here, is it was leaked, and I don't even know how to, I guess leaked is the best word. Darrel,
it was leaked.
Darrel Walls is, I guess, I don't know if he's really made a statement yet, so I don't want to say one way or the other, but there was
explain
an Instagram
to the people
story.
who Darrel Walls is first.
Darrel Walls is a member of the Walls group, which is a gospel group. So there's four siblings that they're very successful. I think 4, 2 girls and 2 guys. Yeah, 2 girls and 2 guys.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
Very successful gospel group. Sing they face off. Woo, Jesus. But last week there was an Instagram story that leaked of him kissing what we assume is his boyfriend or someone he was intrigued with. Or attracted to.
Look, it was more than, and this was not just
it's
like
attracted if it's on the close friends. It's attraction.
This was not a peck on the cheek kind of kiss.
This was some loving kissing.
Friend grabbed him by the face, like very lovingly, brought him in to that 3-4 kiss moment, and then the long kiss after. Like this was very nice. I wanted to see what that
and he's a very attractive man. But but it was shared with his close friends on Insta story, which is a whole nother kind of part of the story, because that means whoever is in that close friend group that he selected leaked it. So I don't even know what my question is. Where to start with the question is, like, part of me is just like, okay, it is what it is. Like, love who you want to love, clearly. But now we need to deal with who you surrounding yourself with, because clearly you were comfortable being your authentic self in that close group. And the vulnerability, since the world didn't know you were part of the
outing.
Community.
Let's be honest. It's a public outing.
It is definitely a public outing. So it's just like, how do you handle that? If this was you all and you were still in the closet or whatever it may be, and you literally have your close friend group selected, and next thing on Entertainment Tonight, you see your face making out with your whoever, your lover, your boyfriend, your interest, what do you tackle first?
I think, honestly, like, I would tackle myself, because like Instagram stories, like, even if it's like close friends, I think it's something that he has had to be at least a little bit comfortable. Like, a few, like, if you're a celebrity, I don't really know like the scale of his closed or how big is him, but yeah, like, sharing that, if that's something that you want to keep in, like, into closed doors, I think he is even doing this on purpose, that maybe, or because, you know, I haven't heard about him before. Yeah. So, and now I have. Yeah. But yeah. And it's a little bit suspicious. I don't know. What do you think? I just don't use the close friends function, so I don't know how, like.
Same.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Same.
Yeah.
What about you, Melissa? You on mute, though, boo. You on mute, Melissa, though. There you go.
Second time I messed up. Maybe.
No, you're good.
Okay, so, you know, I think being outed is awful. Like, I think it's awful. I think you have to do it on your own. Like we talked about before, being ready. Like, you got to be ready. So, like, hopefully, like, I think best case scenario is what Pelayo just shared, is like, if this was a publicity stunt in any way, or if this was something that, like, he was really kind of comfortable, but hopefully he was ready enough to handle this, and it doesn't bring him down and make him, like, feel unsafe and, like, emotionally, like, hopefully he's healthy emotionally and like physically enough to be okay. Like my first thing is like, I hope this guy is okay. Second
now
thing
I feel
is,
bad. Now she's making me feel bad that I didn't say, you know, I didn't blame the friend. I just said, no, it was him.
She want to be famous. That's why she did it.
no, I hope that's the case, Pelayo. Actually, I hope that's the case, right? Because that's would be like the best thing for everybody. Like he gets more famous. You're right. I haven't heard of him either. Like, and also, what does that do then to is a gospel group? What does that do there? What does that do to all of that? Do they stay in the gospel group? Does it change things? Does it shift things? So my brain goes, is that a good thing? But also, like, you know, Pelayo and I spoke to this person. We're doing a series. Our next series is like tackling, we're taking the forbidden apple around the world. And we're talking to this person who's an activist. And she's an activist in Africa. And it's like the amount of shit that she deals with on a daily, like the beatings and the like, you know, it is very, very unsafe. And she was outed publicly, right? Put her face on a magazine, and then her family kicked her out. Like all of this shit that's happening to her because she was outed. So my thing is, I'm thinking being outed is awful. Also, does this guy live in America? Like, is he relatively safe? Probably, hopefully. So I think like, okay, his life is safe. He's physically safe. So my brain goes to like a little bit. He has some privilege. He has some money. He'll be okay. Also, awful friend, and he needs to change his friend group. Like, I think that's my end. If Pelayo's version is not okay, those are my like thoughts there.
Yeah, I have a little bit of experience, and it's not personally as being the one being outed, but my partner, you know, he was outed in the summer of 2017, and it wasn't by his choice. People had went on my social media, found me, took screenshots of my Instagram, and then it circulated through his whole country back in Europe. And then so we woke up the next day with his phone blowing up with tons of people being like, what? Who is this person? What's going on? Like, you've been gone for, he literally left his country like a year. He had been gone for a year. And so like this news was just not, it was so good. It was so big because it's like, oh, so you go to America and you become gay? Like this whole ordeal. And I just remember like just him kind of almost like something like shutting down because it wasn't his time, you know? And I just had to explain to him like, whatever you feel right now, good or bad, is you have every right to feel, especially if it's not your choosing. You know, because at the end of the day, it is your story to tell and yours only. And if someone beats you to the point of telling your story, then you have the right to be upset and you have the right to be angry. But at the same time, you don't owe anybody a fucking answer or question or anything of the sort like that. The only person that matters at that point in your journey is still you, because it's just that, your journey. So when you are outed or you decide to come out, your main focus still needs to be you. And by default, I think we're still conditioned to care about the people around us, because then it's like, oh, well, now people are like, oh, well, how come you didn't tell me? And then navigating that kind of that guilt trip that comes behind it, and be like, well, how come you didn't tell me? I thought we were close. You know, like I wouldn't have judged you. But it's like at the same time, that's great, Joe Smo. But Hella over there would have been like, well, guess what? I hate this about you, blah, 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 too. You know? So there's two sides to every coin in that. And so personally, I just always encourage people to, especially if they're publicly out of it, as what you talked about, Melissa, is just focus on you first. And don't get caught up in the guilt that people will, and some people don't know they're doing it because they're like, well, I love you so much and I thought this is how close we was, and if we're not this close, then you should have told me. Them. It's like, yes. and they don't realize that that's a guilt trip. They don't realize how harmful that actually ends up being. Even though they in their minds they're being supportive. You know, so I just, you know, to those who are also listening who are the supportive friend and know what people have gone through these situations, just allow those people to feel those feels and keep encouraging to be like, focus on you. Focus on you. Get you together, and everyone else will fall in line, because how you love you sets the standard how other people are supposed to love you.
What are you thinking, Dawon?
Yeah.
I'm so the underbelly of this conversation is two things. One, whatever the relationship is that Darrel had with this other guy, whether it's his boyfriend, partner, friend, whatever, clearly they were living their own truth. And regardless of the fact that Darrel is part of the celebrity set and a gospel singer, etc., he still has his own life that everyone has the job that they go to, and they have their life that they're living. And so, what's interesting about this is that clearly he was very comfortable in the setting with which he was in, and being videotaped and sharing, so that he, I would assume, has no quote unquote shame about being gay, and I don't want to speak for him, but what it tells me is that he's living his life and on his terms, whatever that is. I think, so that's number one. Number two, the thing that frustrates me is that this gets to the underbelly of what we were talking about earlier in terms of how religion and religious people, I'm going to use quote by quote, vilify people that don't live up to whatever they deem as the standards of the box that they want them to hold up to. And that could be people in religion, people outside of religion. And it's interesting because over the last couple of days, as this has been unfolding, there are so many social media posts of people, and it's coming from the black, the black culture, these undercover brothers, or you never know who's on the DL, and how dare this guy be singing the Lord's praises on Sunday and then taking dick on Saturday.
That's gonna make me cry.
It's unfortunate because it's shining a light to this hypocrisy that exists within these people, not him. These people that are making these comments. But the benefit that I see is that it's also shining a light on all these people and how destructive they are to the culture, to the institution, to what being a quote unquote Christian is supposed to be, because these are people that are from the church and saying, I've listened to his music for da 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 da, and they're angry at him for being who he is in the fullness that he is, and using the gifts that that God gave him to celebrate, honor, and praise the Lord in that context. Yet,
and the relationship that he has with them,
and their perception of how he's supposed to be doing that is not lining up with his reality. So now they're mad at him.
Yeah,
because their perception is not lining up with his reality.
Exactly.
It is this double-edged sword, but in a sense, it's a good thing, because hopefully what it does is sparks dialogue. And when people start talking about things, and it does inch its way into some elements of reform, because now these concepts no longer are hiding in the sub-basement, but now they have been surfaced. And so when you speak it into existence, it becomes truth. And now we have to deal with the truth. Now we have to reconcile with, what's really the bad behavior? Is the bad behavior what he's doing, or is the bad behavior the way that people have exploited it? The person that shared it exploited it, and these other people that are using their own perceptions of, what morality looks like and all this to push their own agenda.
That is so well said. Yeah.
It triggered something in me and feelings that I hadn't felt in a while, because being from that world, in that world, I'm not on his level, celebrity wise, but just that Christianity and gospel world and everything. I remember when I first moved to Chicago, I was out with some people, not everyone, and especially not social media out and things like that when I first moved. And I remember one weekend I went to Saga Talk with some friends, and and I feel like that was like around the time you could start tagging people in pictures and something like that. And so a friend,
It's,
not
FYI, Saugatuck, Michigan.
Yeah, Saugatuck, Michigan is kind of like
renowned for.
It's kind of like a P-town of Michigan.
Very
just
gay.
a gay mecca,
Very gay.
small town in Michigan
Like
along
Palm
the lakes.
Springs, it's like,
Yeah.
yes.
And so they tagged me in a picture or tagged that we were there or something like that. And I remember the messages I was getting, some even from like my mom and things like that, because she didn't really know at that time. She knew, but she didn't, kind of know.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't confirmed.
Right, it reconfirmed, but then just the messages I started to get because some people knew what Saugatuck was and things like that. And it was a feeling I had kind of forgotten about until I saw this, and literally all of it started coming back up, like the tightness and
The trigger.
because it wasn't on my terms, and even as much as now I hear you guys saying, yes, it's going to be good for him coming out and things like that, going through it, you're not caring about that. You're just like, I am now exposed. I feel so vulnerable that they see my reality, and especially being from the church world, knowing a lot of the stuff that's going to come from it. Like that's the reason why you hide for so long.
Yeah.
Because you know what's about to come. And for it to be ripped, like the Band-Aid to be ripped off, when you unknowingly being ripped off, but then part of you too, in the back of your mind, you're like, okay, it is a slight relief because you're like, okay, at least now I can just deal with that part. I don't have to do these two worlds anymore. I don't have to do it. But when you're going through it, you are so exposed. Yeah. When it wasn't your option, and then to have it be a friend. Obviously, my situation was like they didn't know. They were just taking it. We're living our best life in Saugatuck kind of thing. Here we are in our Speedos and stuff. But I assume that's what Darrell is feeling. Is just like, man, I thought I had 10 people, whatever is his close friend, I could at least be comfortable enough to be vulnerable in my skin. And for it to come out now is just like adds a whole nother layer of just like distrust on top of something that was already distrustful for you, And so I just feel for him. I hope, like you said, Jerrell, that he focuses on himself to deal with why you felt that way in the first place and start there. Because if you start to deal with the friends that leaked it first, and then your family probably coming, and then like your agents probably calling you saying, "Oh, your virtual concert's canceled now." There's so much that he's going. I'm sure being thrown at him right now, and hopefully he's not reading Twitter. But it's just like
he deleted his socials. He deleted his socials after it was released. Yeah. Is he back?
Yeah. So maybe that's a good sign that it's just like it is what it is. But it's just like you're gonna feel raw, like because you don't know, like even though you thought you were preparing yourself slowly but surely to come out and I'm gonna kiss my boyfriend today and just send it to my little 10 little Judies. The second that Band-Aid is ripped off, you're not as prepared as you thought you might have been, and you might not have the tools, especially in
I
that
feel bad now.
gospel.
I feel so bad. I'm like, I don't know what to say.
Wait, so I don't
first.
right. Well, see, I don't feel, but I don't feel
rituals.
bad for this situation. I feel bad because, and this is another topic as well. But like the Hungarian politician that was outed and dragged. That was, and let me say this: the anti-gay Hungarian politician that was caught leaving a 25-man orgy in the middle of a fucking pandemic.
And I need the video.
In the middle of this pandemic. Okay.
Right, where's the video? I need
the video. I was like, because those Brussels men are delicious.
Ooh, ow.
So at first I was sitting here like, he deserves it. He deserves it. If you're doing all this work against the community that's literally dragging our community down, especially there, like, you absolutely deserve this. But then, like, the conversation we're just having about respecting being outed, now I'm kind of like, well, fuck.
It's hard.
It's so,
It's complicated.
I feel like all bets are off when you fight against your own people.
Okay,
Like,
how do you think though? How do you think he's a politician? What do you think for his livelihood, for his safety, for his family? Like, not that I'm just playing devil's advocate, okay? Like, do you feel that he maybe secretly can be like the one that is not as awful? He's just signing off on that because that is how he stays in power in his job, because he can lose everything too.
Is Aaron Shock and the U.S. all over again?
The question of it is for me is about integrity and accountability. It's those two things.
Yeah.
So
what if you don't have that already from the get-go?
Well, then you get what you deserve.
But you were never taught that, because there's situations where
you gotta learn somehow.
Yeah.
Listen, if you grew up to be a 46-year-old man, gay people because you're gay, but you decide I'm gonna join this 25-person orgy out in Brussels, but I'm also gonna sign this legislation and an act that says that you can't get married and you can't have kids and you can't have these tax rights and you can't have health insurance.
But we see it
you deserve everything that comes at you.
But we see it everywhere where people do things because they're not okay with themselves,
and they deserve it. It depends on the platform. I think it depends on the platform and the power. Like, if you were, and I think that's kind of goes with the Dawon was saying, like, if you have a position of power that harms our community, then you get what you deserve. However, if you were someone who just a regular person like, the rest of us, and you are having to stay in this closet because of that's just, you're harming yourself versus the collective, that's a whole different story.
If you are going around
if you want to fuck your life
every
up,
Tom, Dick, and Harry, and you're not using protection, and you are not on PrEP, and you are not being discerning about your sexual health, and you end up catching something, you are the one that's to blame.
True.
And if you catch something, then you deserve it.
Right. But in this sense, we're talking about like an outing of being your authentic self. We're not talking about fucking.
Yeah.
Like,
because you it was an orgy.
Because you can. Because you can still be in a closet and go to fucking orgies and Steamworks and all the rest of that shit.
Yeah. It's the
you
human
find
taking
a way to live your life and still be very sex positive and very safe and all the rest of that stuff.
Yeah.
But like to the sense of like whether or not you are harming people as far as what your work does and how you decide to stay in the closet, if that's harming other people, then I guess I'm all for then your door getting kicked out.
Yeah.
I mean, here's the thing. Here's the thing, though. It is, again, it goes back to those two principles of accountability and integrity. Because at the end of the day, he's the one that made a choice to do that thing.
Yes.
He's the one that made the choice to go to an event that was not COVID responsible. He was the one that decided to go and participate in that kind of that kind of interactivity.
But it's more about the anti-gay. It's less about the orgy. It's more about being anti-gay and hurting your people, because going to the orgy isn't the part that hurts the community.
Okay.
It's to be an anti-gay as a politician.
No, I'm wondering, right? So I am wondering. So one, the people that out him, are they then, even if this person is doing something wrong, what does that say about the person that's outing them? Two, is it possibly, can it be a positive thing, or is it a negative thing? Meaning, is that guy the one that is really signing the bills, or he's on a group of people and he's one of the other people that are also, this is part of his job? Can he do work internally to change things that we might not know about? Or because he's outed, will he lose his job? And then we don't get a chance for a queer person to be in there, kind of be working from the inside, or will it actually help us? Like, I'm wondering the goal of this. Who does it help? Who does it help?
I mean, according to the New York Times, he was a politician that was actively doing damage against the queer community, close to the prime minister, or no, what does they call it? But of the like the lead official of of Hungary,
government.
he was of the government. He was part of it and of the anti-gay part. So he was signing stuff that was actually hurting the community.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that he was a secret gay in there trying to be like pro-gay, even though I'm in here and I'm not out. He was not out and being like, gay is bad.
Gay is bad. Yeah.
I mean, how often do we hear news about the politics of Hungary? You know, we never hear even with everything that's going on in America. So these have to have very, very big. And I think for me, at the end of the day, it's kind of like, okay, there's obviously like positive and negative sides in both stories, because both persons who outed them, they did something that is wrong. But at the same time, like in the great order of things and the effect that may have on our community and our world, the two effects of the outing are very different. And just like I feel like just us in America hearing about that, people in Hungary hearing about that and realizing what goes behind it, that's I would say it's a good thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it obviously has
going back to reread the circumstances by which he was outed, right? And what happened was apparently there was a crackdown because the police were notified that there was this 25-person orgy happening in Hungary. So they were cracking down.
So they was getting it in. They was loud.
They were apparently they were getting it in all over,
in and out and up and down and
bukkake, whatever. So
I can't stand you.
So upon the crackdown of this, this event that was in violation of COVID quarantine rules.
Were they wearing masks?
No,
they were wearing masks, no condoms, no nothing.
They were wearing semen. They were wearing DNA.
Okay.
So he was part of this group that was being cracked down by the police because they were in violation of COVID constraints. So it wasn't just, he was just out there, having sex and get his freak on, blah, blah, blah. So the circumstances of his outing was because he was breaking the law.
Oh, that's his problem. That's his problem.
Yeah. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that changes that, because no one is like out and he's at this party and you're like, you caused us problems and you're here? Like, without
prep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But now the question is, will it be good for us? Like, will it be good for them? Is it good for Hungary? Is it good for queer people? Like, I wonder all of that. Like, when someone is outed in that way, how,
I mean, I think I would care a little bit more if he was a closeted person trying to move the needle in the correct direction.
Yeah, that's
but because he was anti-gay and he was moving it in the wrong direction, like, we know his work was moving it, like, COVID, like the being busted aside, his work as a politician was on the wrong side of the tracks, period. So like, as long as we take one of them people out of the equation, that is a positive to us.
See, and I was thinking on the backside of just like some kid that's still in the closet where is this like a traumatizing event that's either going to force you deeper in the closet. That's what I always kind of think of these like outing situations.
2 words, Aaron Shock. Again, we have seen these right wing.
But the question was, can it be good or bad? But I'm just saying on the bad part of it. Hold on, let me finish it. Y'all had your moment.
Because of the fact that you had one too, so we can both interject. But the point what I was saying, why I say Aaron Shock, was because we've seen a politician who was gay, who was anti-gay doing stuff, come out or get outed and still be Republican and still be on the wrong side.
No, I get that.
That's why I said 2 words, Aaron Shock.
No, I get that. I wasn't going against all that. I was just saying the question was, is there a good or bad? Is there a good or bad situation was her question. And my point was, it could be a potential bad thing for someone that's already struggling with themselves to see something so traumatic out there and force them deeper into the closet. That's the only thing I was saying.
I mean, I get that. I get that.
I'm wondering, Or it can do the opposite, right? Somebody in the closet can be like, hey, politicians are gay too. Like that is everywhere. I'm not crazy. I'm not the only one. And then I'm wondering with Aaron Schock, what was the outcome there? Did he lose his job? Did it help us in any way?
I don't know.
Didn't help us.
It didn't help us.
So
Not one bit.
Still going to circuit parties. He was probably in Brussels.
Probably. He was probably at that same party.
He was there. Wait, did she leak it?
It was a
Right, she
politician's
probably leaked
only.
it. She was like, I'm not the only one no more. Look.
It was a politician's only orgy.
Well, there were multiple diplomats that were at that.
Yeah,
Oh, there was multiple?
But I think
they
there were
said
multiple.
that.
Yeah, there were multiple. But the reason why he was acknowledged was because of his negative impact specifically within Hungary and supporting a lot of these policies. So I don't listen. Whatever floats your boat sexually or whatever, again, I'm very like sex positive when it comes to like that kind of stuff, as long as you are protecting yourself and your partners or whomever you're connecting with are in full agreement and alignment to whatever it is that y'all are doing. That's great. I think the issue of it is that when you are and we see this time and time again, when you are actively fighting against, gay people to live their lives, and you,
the one
being a hypocrite,
multiple dicks in the face,
getting plowed, just getting plowed, and your fingernails blasted, and
How was it, Jerrell? How was it, Jerrell? Oh my gosh. But yeah,
I am wondering, like, okay, but also he's a fucking politician. Like, how many politicians do things that are harmful because they think that they will get their way eventually, or they sign up with groups and they say, "Oh, I'm anti this," but you look into most
all day, every day.
Yeah. So I'm also like,
what was he? No, I was just. I wonder if he was getting his beard pulled and somebody just yelling, just sign a bill against
You want to know the frozen moment, like what he was doing right when the door got kicked down? It's just like, you're pushing it away. You're like,
you know how like when people die and they excrete themselves? That door probably went open and all the light came in. And
you are so stupid. That is true though. There's that moment when you do it so like nasty and like your phone ring or something. You're just like, what the hell was I doing? That was like I was on some stuff right there. Oh Lord.
Oh, I'm hot
anyway.
Now.
Well, okay, but before we get out of here, exactly. Please tell us where they can find you. Where can they find their podcast? Where they can find your YouTube and everything. Let us know all that juicy detail.
Yeah, you can find us in all streaming platforms. The Forbidden Apple Podcast at Forbidden Apple Podcast in Instagram, and you can find me in YouTube as Pelayo AF.
Pelayo AF.
Love it. And what days do your podcast? Is it like a weekly podcast? Is it? What days do they come out on?
It's a weekly podcast. Okay. It is a weekly podcast. We're out on Sundays. We are just wrapping up our season. And so we are going to take a little bit of time and come back in the new year. Nice. Yeah, but in the meantime, people should come on our Instagram because we're going to be doing just live Instagram lives with other people and have these conversations. So we keep it going.
Awesome.
We'll be there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll be in those comments asking questions.
And actually come live with us one day during December when we do that. Yeah.
Sounds like a plan to me.
Look, I'm over here in Harlem, so let's make it happen.
Yeah, amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. But we appreciate you guys taking time to hop on the podcast with us. This was amazing. You're welcome back whenever, because we can have conversations.
I feel like 5 more episodes. More to be said.
Exactly.
As you're wrapping up, I'm like, this is the end.
I know.
Well, you know what? You know what's super surprised me, right? Because it's really fun, and you're also all really smart. Like you're all really like you're going deep. You're all doing that, then taking a break and being silly. Yeah, I'm liking that like dynamic. You have
that's how you get a call back. You better say that.
Right. She's like, I'm trying to get back on this podcast real quick. What community?
Yeah, I was like, oh, it's not possible the three will say something interesting, but yeah, you did.
Yes,
like,
exactly. All three of you.
Like, everybody saying
something interesting and intriguing and attractive.
Exactly. And we still got a bukkake moment in there somehow. It happens. But community, remain safe. We know the holidays is hard. You want to get with your friends, your family, and all that stuff. But I mean, come on, the numbers are crazy.
Tis is not the season to be a ho ho ho. Okay,
Sure
not in 2020.
Yeah.
You know, wait till next fall and get it all the way in there.
Right.
You know?
Get it all the way in with your COVID
wash your
vaccine and
hands.
everything.
Wash your hands, wash your legs, wash your ass, and we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye, y'all.
Bye-bye.